The Karnax vessel drifted silently through the void, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Captain Vexthor stood at the command center, all three of his sensor stalks focused on the peculiar ship that had wandered into their territory. The vessel's design puzzled him. It appeared crude, almost primitive, with exposed metal panels and visible well blinds. Nothing like the seamless bioengineered ships of the Karnax Empire. Analysis complete, Captain. First Sensor Officer Zekra announced, her neural tendrils pulsing with amusement. The vessel appears to be a human research ship. Their shield technology is practically non-existent, and their weapon systems. She paused, mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among their kind. They're still using particle accelerators and chemical propellants. Vexthor's central stalk twitched with interest. The Karnax Empire had heard rumors about these humans, a species that had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their rapid expansion had caught the attention of several spacefaring races, but this was Vexthor's first direct encounter with one of their ships. Life signs, he inquired, already contemplating how much technology they could salvage from this primitive vessel. 32 organic signatures, all concentrated in the pressurized sections. Their life support systems are remarkably inefficient. They're actually using mechanical pumps to circulate atmosphere. Zekra's neural tendrils rippled with derision. Vexthor straightened his ceremonial carapace, its iridescent plates shifting to display his rank and authority. Prepare a boarding party. Standard acquisition protocol. These humans should be honored to contribute their technology to the advancement of the Empire. The boarding party assembled quickly. 6 elite warriors in biomechanical combat shells that could withstand direct energy weapon hits. Their neural interfaces connected them directly to their weapons, allowing them to target and fire with mere thoughts. As the boarding shuttle approached the human vessel, Vexthor noticed something odd. The humans made no attempt to raise shields or power weapons. Either their sensors were truly as primitive as they appeared, or, Captain, Zekra's voice carried an unusual note of concern. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from within their hull. The patterns don't match any known civilian configurations. Probably poorly shielded research equipment. Vexthor dismissed the warning. These humans barely understand proper containment protocols. The boarding party reached the human ship's airlock. Breaching outer hull now, the team leader reported. No resistance encountered. These humans must be. The transmission cut off in a burst of static. Vexthor's sensor stalks went rigid. Report. What's happening? The command center erupted with fragmented transmissions. The walls. They're not what they seem. Energy signatures everywhere. They're in the silence. On the main display, Vexthor watched in horror as the human ship's primitive hull began to transform. Panels slid aside, revealing sophisticated weapon ports. The exposed weld lines turned out to be disguised energy conduits. Even the inefficient life support system was actually a complex network of sensor arrays. Battle stations. Vexthor roared, but it was too late. The human ship had already launched its first strike, not with particle accelerators or chemical propellants, but with weapons that somehow turned the Karnax's own energy signatures against them. In that moment, Vexthor understood the terrible truth. Humans hadn't built primitive technology because they were less advanced. They had deliberately created systems that appeared crude to lull their opponents into a false sense of superiority. Every exposed panel, every visible weld, every seemingly inefficient system had been carefully designed to conceal their true capabilities. As his ship's systems began to fail one by one, Vexthor realized that the Karnax Empire had made a catastrophic mistake. They had assumed that advancement meant complexity, that sophistication required obvious displays of technology. But humans had taken a different path. They had mastered the art of looking weak while being strong. The last thing Vexthor saw before his command center went dark was a message scrolling across his main display. UNSS Trojan Horse sends its regards. Admiral Chen of the Karnax Imperial Fleet arrived at the scene with 12 warships, each one a masterpiece of crystalline biotechnology. The fleet arranged itself in an attack formation that had won countless battles across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Their target, a single human vessel that had somehow disabled one of their most advanced patrol ships. "Magnify the human vessel," Chen ordered, his sensor stalks swaying with anticipation. The ship appeared on his command center's main display, a patchwork of metal plates and exposed infrastructure that seemed to belong in a museum rather than deep space. "Sir, we're being hailed," his communications officer reported. A human face appeared on the screen. "This is Captain Sarah Martins of the UNSS Trojan Horse," the human said, wearing what looked like a simple fabric uniform. "We're prepared to return your boarding party unharmed and discuss appropriate compensation for this unfortunate incident." Chen's neural tendrils bristled. The humans spoke as if they held the upper hand, despite facing overwhelming odds. "You disabled an Imperial vessel and took its crew hostage. Surrender immediately, or we will reduce your ship to its component atoms." "With respect, Admiral," Martins replied, her tone remarkably calm. "Your boarding party attacked us without provocation in neutral space. We defended ourselves using minimal force. Your crew is comfortable, unharmed, and probably learning some valuable lessons about assumptions." Before Chen could respond, his tactical officer interrupted. "Sir, we're detecting unusual movement patterns from the human vessel. They appear to be venting atmosphere." On the screen, Martinez smiled. "Not atmosphere, Admiral. Just a little chemistry experiment." The vented gas cloud expanded rapidly, its composition changing as it interacted with the Karnak ship's crystalline hulls. Their supposedly impenetrable bioengineered armor began to crystallize in new patterns, creating prismatic effects that scattered their own sensor beams. "Fascinating, isn't it?" Martins continued. "Your ship's hulls are beautiful, living crystal matrices that adapt to threats, but that adaptation can be guided if you understand the basic principles of crystal growth, which, apparently, humans do." Chen watched in disbelief as his fleet's sophisticated sensors became increasingly confused by their own reflections. The human ship, meanwhile, seemed to be breaking apart, panels falling away, sections drifting apart. "Sir," his tactical officer called out, "those aren't debris fields. They're drone ships." The human vessel was actually multiple ships connected together. Indeed, what they had thought was a single primitive vessel was transforming into a swarm of smaller craft, each one using the scattered sensor readings to move undetected through the Karnak formation. "You see, Admiral," Martinez explained, "humans learned long ago that the most effective technology isn't always the most advanced. Sometimes, the best solution is the simplest one that works. Your crystals are amazing, but they follow predictable growth patterns. Your sensors are incredible, but they can be overwhelmed by their own precision." The smaller human ships were now weaving through Chen's formation, attaching devices to his vessel's hulls. Not explosive devices or weapon systems, but simple resonators, devices that used sound waves to disrupt the crystalline structures of the Karnak ships. "We could have built ships like yours," Martinez continued. "Beautiful, perfect, advanced. But instead, we chose to understand how things work at their most basic level. Because when you truly understand the fundamentals, you can turn anything into an advantage." Chen's fleet, pride of the Imperial Navy, was being systematically disabled by technology that his engineers had dismissed as primitive. The human ships weren't trying to destroy his vessels. They were simply preventing them from fighting effectively. "Your boarding party will be returned to you shortly," Martinez said, "along with detailed documentation of how we defeated your ships. Consider it a gesture of good faith and a reminder that appearances can be deceiving." As Chen watched his mighty fleet rendered helpless by what appeared to be mining equipment and construction tools repurposed as weapons, he realized that the humans hadn't just mastered space travel. They had mastered the art of using every tool, every principle, every scrap of knowledge to their advantage. The humans weren't primitive at all. They were simply practical in a way that the Karnaks, with all their advanced technology, had forgotten how to be. High Command of the Karnaks Empire convened an emergency session, their neural networks humming with agitation as they processed the defeat of Admiral Chen's fleet. The chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with the combined anxiety of the Empire's greatest military minds. Supreme Commander Ixthar's sensor stalks wavered as he reviewed the battle footage. "Impossible," he muttered. "They turned our own crystalline technology against us using mining equipment and construction tools." "Not just tools," strategic analyst Vera interjected, her neural tendrils flickering with intense calculations. "Look at their methodology. Every human action served multiple purposes. The atmospheric vent. It wasn't just for crystal disruption. It also provided cover for their ship's transformation. The resonators, they weren't just disabling our ships. They were gathering data about our hull frequencies. The chamber's illumination dimmed as a new holographic display materialized, showing the UNSS Trojan Horse's transformation sequence. What had appeared to be random debris and structural damage was revealed as an intricately choreographed deployment pattern. "We've been approaching this all wrong," Vera continued. "We kept looking for advanced technology, for sophisticated weapons systems. But the humans aren't trying to match our technological level. They're bypassing it entirely." A message interrupted their analysis. The humans were broadcasting on all frequencies, using the Empire's own communication protocols. Captain Martinez's image appeared before the High Command. "Given recent events, we believe it's time for a demonstration," she announced. "Please direct your attention to the Voraxian Nebula." The High Command watched as a flotilla of human ships emerged from the nebula's gas clouds. But these vessels looked different. They appeared to be cobbled together from salvaged Karnaks technology, mixed with human innovations. "You've been studying us," Ixthar realized aloud. "Every engagement, every scan, every interaction, you were learning." "Quick study, Commander," Martins replied. "While your engineers were laughing at our primitive technology, we were reverse engineering your crystalline systems, not to copy them, but to understand their fundamental principles." The human ships began to emit energy signatures that exactly matched Karnak's frequencies. The Empire's automated defense systems registered them as friendly vessels. But something was wrong. The signatures were changing, evolving, creating patterns that shouldn't have been possible. "Your bioengineered technology is remarkable," Martins continued. "Living crystal that adapts and grows. But you've become so reliant on its complexity that you've forgotten something crucial. The simpler the system, the harder it is to break." Alarm signals suddenly blared throughout the Imperial command network. Their supposedly unhackable crystalline computers were experiencing something unprecedented: confusion. The human ships were broadcasting signals that caused the living crystal to question its own structure, creating cascading uncertainties through the entire system. "We didn't need to break your encryption," Martinez explained. "We just needed to make your systems doubt themselves. A lesson humanity learned long ago. Sometimes the most effective attack isn't against the technology, but against its assumptions." The High Command watched in horror as their mighty defense network began to shut down, not from any direct attack, but from an existential crisis induced by human ingenuity. Their perfect, self-aware systems were paralyzed by the same quality that made them so advanced: their ability to question and adapt. "Your technology seeks perfection," Martinez said. "Ours, we aim for good enough, because we learned that perfection can be a weakness. Everything we build has flaws, but we understand those flaws, accept them, and plan for them. Can you say the same?" As the Empire's defense grid struggled to recover, Ixthar finally understood the true danger humans posed. They weren't trying to climb the same technological ladder as the Karnaks. They were building their own ladder, using materials no one else would consider, in ways no one else would attempt. The humans hadn't just adapted to space warfare. They had reinvented it, turning the very assumptions of advanced civilization into weapons. And they had done it all while appearing primitive, under-equipped, and harmless. The Karnax Empire's Situation Room crackled with nervous energy as reports flooded in from across their territory. More human ships had been spotted, all displaying the same deceptively primitive appearance as the Trojan horse. But now the Empire knew better than to judge by appearances. Supreme Commander Ixthar's neural tendrils coiled tightly as he studied the tactical display. "They're everywhere," he whispered. "Not invading, not attacking, just watching, learning." "Sir," strategic analyst Vera interrupted, her sensor stalks rigid with alarm. "We've detected unusual activity in the Centauri drift. The humans are mining asteroids." The tactical display shifted to show a fleet of human vessels systematically breaking down asteroids using what appeared to be modified construction equipment. But something about the pattern seemed odd. "Those aren't mining operations," a junior analyst suddenly spoke up. "They're building something. Look at the debris field patterns." The room fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans weren't just collecting resources. They were constructing a vast network of seemingly random debris fields. Each field appeared natural, unremarkable, until you realized they formed a perfect grid across Karnak space. "Message incoming from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. Captain Martinez appeared on screen, but this time she wasn't alone. Behind her stood a team of what appeared to be human engineers, each wearing simple work clothes and holding basic tools. "I believe it's time we had a frank discussion about territory and trading rights," Martine said. "Your empire has been charging protection fees in neutral space. That stops now." Ixthar's sensor stalks quivered with indignation. "You dare to make demands? Your primitive ships may have caught us off guard before, but now we're prepared. We understand your tricks." "Do you?" Martines asked quietly. "Tell me, Commander, what do you see when you look at our debris fields?" "A tactical grid," Ixthar replied confidently. "You're trying to establish a strategic network in our space, but now that we've detected it—" "Wrong," Martinez interrupted. "Look again. Look closer." The tactical display zoomed in on one of the debris fields. What had appeared to be random chunks of rock and metal were actually intricately constructed devices, each one perfectly positioned. "Those aren't defensive positions or weapon platforms," Vera realized aloud. "They're resonators, like the ones they used before." "But the scale. Each debris field is a note," Martinez explained. "Together, they form a symphony, one that's currently dormant, but if activated." She let the implication hang in the air. The Karnax commanders finally understood. The humans had turned their entire territory into one massive resonance chamber. If activated, the debris field network could generate harmonic frequencies that would disrupt every crystalline structure in Karnak space, from their mighty warships to their planetary defense systems. "But the energy requirements," Ixthar protested. "The coordination needed. It's impossible with your level of technology." Martinez smiled. "Commander, you're still thinking like a Karnax. You see our tools, our ships, our technology, and you think you understand our capabilities. But humans don't measure advancement by the complexity of our tools. We measure it by what we can accomplish with whatever tools we have at hand." She gestured to her engineering team. "These people, they're not soldiers. They're not even military engineers. They're construction workers, miners, mechanics. People who understand how things work at the most fundamental level. And that's what makes us dangerous. We don't need advanced technology to achieve advanced results." The tactical display updated again, showing hundreds more human ships emerging from stealth. Each one looked cobbled together, improvised, almost crude. And each one was perfectly positioned to activate part of the resonance network. "So here's our offer," Martinez continued. "We can spend the next few cycles demonstrating just how creative humans can be with basic tools and fundamental principles. Or we can discuss fair trade practices like civilized beings. Your choice." Ixthar looked at his advisors, their neural tendrils all conveying the same message. The humans hadn't just outmaneuvered them militarily, they had fundamentally changed the rules of engagement. They had turned empty space itself into a weapon, using technology so basic that it barely registered on advanced sensors. The price of underestimating humanity had become clear. The question now was, how much more would they have to pay to learn their lesson? The Grand Chamber of the Karnax Empire had never hosted non-Karnax beings before. Its crystalline architecture was designed to interface directly with Karnax neural networks, making it unsuitable for other species. Yet here stood Captain Sarah Martinez and her engineering team, examining the living crystal walls with undisguised fascination. "Remarkable," one of the human engineers muttered, holding up what looked like a primitive scanning device. The crystalline matrix responds to thought patterns, but it's not just a simple interface. The entire structure is learning from each interaction. Supreme Commander Ixthar watched as the humans studied his civilization's most advanced technology with tools that looked barely more sophisticated than children's toys. But he had learned not to underestimate human methods. "Your analysis is correct," he admitted, neural tendrils pulsing with reluctant admiration. "The chamber adapts to serve its occupants better, though I'm surprised your equipment can detect such subtle changes." Martinez smiled, holding up her scanner. It's just a modified seismic detector. We figured if your crystals work anything like Earth's piezoelectric materials, they'd generate readable patterns. Sometimes the simplest approach yields the best results." The peace conference had been going for several cycles now. What had started as tense negotiations over territory and trade rights had evolved into something unexpected, an exchange of ideas that was transforming both civilizations' understanding of technology and progress. "We've reviewed your proposal," Ixthar announced, his sensor stalks oriented formally. "The Empire agrees to withdraw all claims to protection fees in neutral space. Furthermore, we propose an exchange program. Our crystal engineers working alongside your— what did you call them?" "Tinkerers," Martinez supplied. "People who like to take things apart and put them back together in new ways." The human delegation had brought examples of their work, devices that combined Karnax crystalline technology with human mechanical engineering. They were crude by Empire standards, but they worked in ways the Karnax had never imagined possible. "Your people achieve remarkable results with limited resources," Vera observed, her neural tendrils flickering with complex calculations. "We thought we had mastered crystal technology, but you've shown us applications we never considered." "That's because you were looking for perfection," one of the human engineers explained. "You kept trying to make the crystals more pure, more precise, more controlled. We looked at them and thought, what happens if they're a little messy? What happens if we deliberately introduce imperfections?" The tactical display activated, showing the debris field network the humans had constructed. But now it revealed something new. The debris was actually creating a harmonic lattice that enhanced rather than disrupted Karnax crystal technology. "We never intended to use it as a weapon," Martinez revealed. "That was just to get your attention. What we've actually built is a communication network that combines your crystal tech with our understanding of acoustic physics. It's not as elegant as your systems, but it's more robust, more adaptable, and nearly impossible to disable." Ixthar's sensor stalks swayed with surprise. "You turned our entire territory into a communications array, using mining equipment and construction tools." "That's what humans do," Martinez said. "We adapt, we improvise, we find new ways to use old things. Your technology is amazing, but you've become so focused on advancement that you've forgotten the value of simplicity." The chamber's crystalline walls pulsed with new patterns as it processed the interaction between human and Karnax thought patterns. For the first time, the living crystal was learning to interface with non-Karnax minds, creating something entirely new in the process. "Perhaps," Ixthar said slowly, "this is the beginning of a different kind of advancement, not just in technology, but in understanding." Martinez nodded, watching as human engineers and Karnax scientists worked together, combining their vastly different approaches to create something neither civilization could have achieved alone. That's another human trait, she said. We don't just adapt technology. We adapt ourselves. Every challenge, every setback, every mistake becomes an opportunity to learn and grow. And now, maybe we can grow together. The chamber's walls shimmered with new possibilities as the first official human-Karnax collaboration began. The Empire had sought to dominate through technological superiority, only to discover that true advancement came not from the complexity of one's tools, but from the wisdom to use them well. And in that discovery, both civilizations found something greater than victory. They found understanding.